so I think I'm going to start, and if there's people who come in, if you can let them in, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming to today's session organized by the REH, Réseau Environnement Humanitaire or Humanitarian Environment Network, which is organized, this session in particular, by the Waste Working Group of this network. The REH is holding a few sessions across HNPW. We had one yesterday by the Environmental Assessment Working Group. So we thank you for coming here today. And I'm just gonna, to start with, I'm just gonna briefly go through the agenda, which we're going to start with a brief introduction both to the issue of waste management in aid, the network itself, and the waste working group. We're then going to have a presentation of the Precious Plastic Initiative by Jan, who's joining us today, so thank you. And then we scheduled in two discussions on reverse logistics. We have firstly going to have a short presentation by Céline, and another discussion on cost analyses, which are two issues that we identified as being crucial for this for waste management in humanitarian aid. And then we're just going to finish off with a few perspectives that the working group is working on if you want to join us. So to start with, we want this session to be as collaborative as it can be. So we did a short work lab that you can find here, either on the link or if you go to the website and you put in this code. And then I'm going to put up a few questions. So let me know if you cannot join. So we can start with the first question. So that's just to kind of get to know you a little bit better, to know who's in the room, so we can see who we're working with. So for people that are joining us, we're just doing a small work lab exercise to kind of get to know who's in the room. You can go to worklab.com and then put this code in, which I put in the chat as well. Okay, and it's interesting, like yesterday's session, we have a lot of environmental and climate change advisors. So it's good we can have interesting conversations afterwards. I'm just going to see if people that are joining have access to Google Clap as well. I don't see any more answers, so I'm just going to go on to the next question. So this is more to know what sector do you specialize in? And that's especially in relation to waste management, just because from the experience from the working group, we figured out that, I mean, depending on what organization you work for or your own specialty, you have a lot of different issues. So we'd just be interesting to know who's in the room as well. And if you're other, don't hesitate to put it in the chat just so we know, because we would be curious to know as well. And it's quite an even room for now. Okay, so we have a majority of wash and other. Again, if you want to put in the chat what is other, would be interesting to know. But yeah, also from, I mean, I think there's a lot of people from the working group as well. So it makes sense because that's kind of the profile of people that are part of the working group. But yeah, we're just interested to know who else was joining. So then I'm just going to move on to the last question. And that's more what I mean by what types of waste concerns your activity the most. It's both what you would produce more and also what is most problematic for you to do to manage your waste. And so yeah, would just be interesting to know. We also have some insights from our working group, but again, we wanted to know what was the feel of the room. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to say, but you can select multiple answers. I'm just going to leave this up a little bit more, but it's interesting to see that most people agree on the same kind of issues that they have. Also, it's interesting that electronical waste didn't get picked that much, but I'll talk about that afterwards. But yeah, it also makes sense, of course, of depending on the activity that you selected before. That's kind of why we wanted to know both. And I'm just going to leave it up a few more seconds and then I'm going to go on with the introduction. Okay, but thank you for filling this out. The reason why we did this little survey at first is oops, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Is because at the beginning of this working group, actually before this working group was created, Group URD, which is the secretariat of the Humanitarian Environment Network, did a survey back in May 2022 with humanitarian practitioners to see what issues, what waste they had most issues with, and which needed was most a priority for waste management. And what we found is that packaging, followed by electronic waste and household waste, were the most concerning, which is interesting because we did find packaging and household waste in the small little survey that we just did, but we didn't find electronic waste as much. Other findings from this survey was that waste management raises growing environmental and health issues, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. We also found that in the answers, there was low mention of reduction issues or innovations, which is something that we want to talk about within this working group. There's also no mention of reverse logistics, and the issue of cost of waste management was a recurring problem for all of waste. So these problematics, amongst others, underlined the need for this working group and nourished what we want to do within this group. So that was just a quick introduction to, in case you weren't familiar, although I think most of the people in the room are quite familiar with the issue of waste. But if I can just present to you quickly what the ROH is, so the Humanitarian Environment Network, which is organizing this session, is a network of French-speaking NGOs who work together to reduce the environmental footprint of aid. We have over 200 members and 20 organizations, both international and local organizations. And it is a French-speaking network. However, it might be that we have organizations that are not French-speaking, but that one member of that organization does speak French and is interested in this issue. So they joined the ROH. We took several commitments, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But to operationalize these commitments, we created 4 working groups, one on carbon, one on environmental assessment, one on sustainable and responsible procurement, and the one that is organizing the session today, waste. I put a link here to the website if you wanna check it out. We just uploaded the English versions. There are still minor issues, so please do bear with us. But if you do want to join the network, you can just go on the website and click join, and then you'll be a member of this network. So the general mission of the network is that given the urgency and the seriousness of climate and environmental issues, the network works to improve understanding and awareness of these issues among French-speaking humanitarian and development actors, and supports them in adopting more environmentally friendly practices. So the way we do this is through different organs. So when you join the network, you're automatically part of the forum, which is an open platform where we share experiences and knowledge. We meet every 2 months and we talk about emerging issues with regards to environment and the climate and how they can be applied to humanitarian and development aid. So the last one we had was last Thursday, and it was on the One Health approach. We also had one on carbon offsetting. We had one on nature-based solutions. So we try to find different emerging topics. We invite specialists and academicians, and then we try to look at how these concepts can be applied in the context of aid. So if you join the network, you automatically belong to the forum, and on the website, you'll be able to find the past presentations and notes on these different issues, and also resources, The way the network works is that it's headed with a steering committee, or comité de pilotage in French, COPIL, which overviews over the 4 working group. So if you join the ROH, you can also join a working group to operationalize the mission that we've taken. The first working group that was created was the carbon working group, which aims to support member organizations to carry out their carbon footprint evaluations and to implement targeted measures to reduce the impact of their activities. At this point in time, most members of the working group have either almost done with the carbon footprint evaluations or are collecting the data. We then had the environmental evaluations or environmental assessment working group that is working on different environmental assessment tools, such as the NEET+, the CEDRIC, the EST, which also held a session yesterday at the HNPW. And what we do is we try to develop trainings, for example, for the NEET+, and we try to give user feedback to improve these tools. We are also joining the governance of the NEET+. So we also have the waste working group, which is the one that's organizing today. It was created back in September, so it's still quite new. And we aim to help member organizations to better integrate waste and its management into the project. And then finally, kind of in relation to the waste working group as well, is the Sustainable and Responsible Procurement Working Group, which is the one that was most recently created, which aims to support member organizations to integrate sustainable procurement concepts into the supply chain. It actually existed outside of the network, and it just recently became a member of the ROH. And it works in close cooperation as well with the waste working group. So, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but then I swear I'm going to stop talking. But I just wanted to talk to you about the Statement of Commitment on Climate by humanitarian organizations, which was pushed by the ROH, which you can find on the link here. I hope you can click on the links that are on the slides. And otherwise I don't think you can actually, well, I'll put them in the chat afterwards, but it is basically a statement that was signed on by humanitarian organizations, and which is in parallel of the environmental and climate charter that you're probably aware of. However, this statement has concrete targets, which consists of firstly measuring our impact, which refers both to the carbon working group and the environmental assessment working group. We also aim to reduce our carbon footprint. Actually, there's a commitment of reducing greenhouse gases emissions by 50% by 2023, to adapt the human action that is carried out to the risks of climate change, and then also to communicate and encourage others to raise ambition. So, for example, today's session is an instance of this, where we try to show what we're working on to get other organizations and other individuals in the sector to join this effort to reduce the environmental footprint. And recently we had 2 new signatories. So it was firstly signed by 10 organizations, then the CRET signed in September, and just recently we had Humanity and Inclusion and Terre des Hommes Suisses who just signed on. And then this is the last slide where I talk your ear off, but I just wanted to present to you the commitments or the objectives that the working group has taken. So the specific waste working group wants to capitalize on members' waste management experiences, which is why during meetings we have sharing of experiences. We also want to contribute to existing initiatives without duplicating efforts. We work closely with the joint initiative, which is also a member of this group, and we want to contribute to their work as they contribute to ours. We wish to establish common methodologies and tools at the programmatic and support level, and then you'll see in the perspectives of the working group how we want to do this. We also want to cooperate with suppliers to optimize purchasing, reduce packaging, and integrate and develop reverse logistics, which we're going to talk about a little bit later because that's more complex. And we really want to emphasize that this working group wants to work with suppliers because we think it's an issue that needs to be tackled at both ends of the stream. And compared to, for example, to the procurement working group, which works with NGOs, and that's also how we complement each other. Finally, we want to advocate with donors to better take into account waste in proposal and projects and to accept the real cost of waste management, which is also an issue that we're going to talk about afterwards. We want this working group to be a platform to be able to share innovative solutions in the field, which is something that we found from the survey at the beginning as well, which is why we also use it as a platform to share. For example, we had a presentation by Waste for Warmth, or today by Precious Plastic. So with this, I'm going to hand it over to Jan from the Precious Plastic Initiative, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And sorry for talking so long on the introduction, but I just wanted to set the scene of both the network and the working group.
So I'm continuing.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can't see your screen yet. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Can you see it well? Yes. Perfect. So hi everyone. Thank you everyone for joining and listening to this group. And so yeah, I'm Jan from Push Plastic. I'm working since around 5 years for Push Plastic. Initially on machine design, and now I'm also working on project management, so installing a small scale recycling facility. So I will present you very quickly what is Push Plastic first, and then I will also show you an example of a workspace we installed in a humanitarian context. So you can also see the kind of application this technology could bring to this field. So yeah, Push Plastic is a relatively recent project, or old, it depends how we consider it, that started in 2013 by the man on the picture, Dave Hykens, and he was just a graduation project from the Design Academy in Eindhoven, and he for having like some small scale artisanal way of recycled plastic, and he gained a bit of fame through this project that allowed him to do few versions afterwards that every time bring more knowledge, more machines, more people on board, etc. Then that brings us to 2020 when we released the fourth version of the machine. It's more semi-industrial and really like field applied. That will come back to it later. So yeah, the problem that started this project is, I think, very known by all of you. The number I have here are a little bit old. I think now we are far above 400 million of tons produced of plastic every year, and very little of it is recycled, and the vast majority is not even treated properly and end up in nature through various ways. And why the recycling is so low in general on plastic is this is a very inaccessible knowledge and tools and machinery, and generally only works on very large scale, very expensive machines and infrastructure that only work in a field when you have all the ecosystem to sustain such industrial way of treating waste. So then the idea that came to Dave when he started this project was that plastic recycling would be much more efficient, or at least will propose an alternative if it's a network of people that work together really locally to tackle the plastic. So for this, we needed to change a little bit the way plastic is recycled to go to small scale. So these are the original machines that he designed during the three first versions, actually. So it's very small scale machines. We can recycle around a maximum of 10 kilo per hour, maybe something like this. But they are also extremely easy to build. They are open source, so they are replicable everywhere in the world. And that allow anyone in his garage to collect a little bit of plastic around him, start recycling it, and start working towards reducing the waste. In version 4, what I was talking to you before, we realized that the machines that we initially designed were too small. They were more like an hobby scale and not really having a large impact. And so we designed these semi-industrial machines. I would call them more artisanal machines. That would be more appropriate. But yeah, that will allow it to go around 50 to 200 kilo per hour of recycling. So we're still on a very small scale. These machines are still open source and generally easy to build a bit everywhere locally, but they allow a group of people to really decide to start a business, start recycling, and live out of this activity, and therefore in their area. And quickly, some numbers. They are from our last impact survey. We actually did one that we just finished one, but I don't have the number yet. But yeah, we have, because we are an open source movement, we have more than 500 recycling workspace all around the world. We recycled all these workspaces together, at least from the number they gave to us, recycled almost 400 tons of plastic in 2019 and generated around 2 million euros of global revenue that helped all this workspace. And I say we're an open source project, so we have 7,000 users globally on our platform, and our machine kit, so all the technical drawings to build them have been downloaded more than 100,000 times. Now we come to an application example, because yeah, this is what I presented is the project in general, so really the designing of the machine, the open source side, but we are also installing some machines in some different contexts to try to implement small-scale recycling in very remote area. And that was a bit more than a year ago. We went to Algeria, in the south of Algeria, close to Tindouf, in the Sahrawi refugee camp. And yeah, that's a UNHCR camp. And then, of course, yeah, a lot of people are living there. It's a temporary living as a refugee camp can be, even if it's more than 40 years that people are there. And therefore, they have a huge waste problem. So this project was to install the first recycling facility in the Sahrawi refugee camp, said, and this was managed by the UNHCR, and we were like a group of 4 organizations doing this. So NGI, which was a Norway engineering company, MPDL, which is a Spanish NGO, and then Myanmar, which is the Environment Ministry of the Sahrawi, that is running the place. So we actually installed that. That was our biggest project, still our biggest project up to now. So we installed around 30 machines in total, and with the full scale that will go from sorting the plastic, shredding it into pieces, washing it, drying it, and then transforming it into 2 different objects that will be sheet panels that you can use to make table, box, these kind of things, and an extruder that will make beams that you can use to make fence posts, bands, furniture, etc. So the main idea of this place was to repair school desk after, to be able to provide school desk in the camp. And the advantage of this kind of projects that we, compared to the initial way that we had of like how we design machines to open source them, is like that really give us some application that we need to follow. So then we are able to also continue our development and then release it still open source after for everyone to use. So on this project, it really allows us to finish the whole certification of our machines. So now, as you could see maybe on the first picture, the machines are extremely simple, but now we really integrate some safety feature, so the machine can actually be certified and used by employee or normal companies. And we also continue to develop our washing system, because of course, yeah, it's in the middle of the desert, so water is also a crucial resource there. So we wanted to have a washing system that will use the less water possible. So we had an integrated water treatment system. And yeah, all our training include all our installations, include some training. So we always spend some time with the team there. We teach them about, of course, our machinery and how to use or to recycle the plastic with what they have. But also we try to integrate, some how to run a business training, as well as general training about waste, about how to reduce waste, how does it come from, stuff. And we always try to also develop objects that the people would like to use, and then there we continue to develop a bench, fully made with the extruder, and then like this one that you can see, this black plastic was actually this food crate that arrived in the camp, and then we were able to shred that and make some benches with that were then used in UNHCR offices or school or living area, etc. And actually, it's kind of good that this presentation is happening now, because a month ago I went back to Algeria for like a yearly visit. It was a bit more than a year, but that was the idea. And then to have a global vision on the machine, see if they need some extra training, and do a bit of maintenance as well on it. And yeah, so on their first year, they recycled around 10 tons of plastic. So they have the capacity to do much more, but there was a problem. I will come back later on it. And all the machinery that we installed, even with the rough conditions of having like sand everywhere, they were still working fine. I had like very little maintenance to do on them. And yeah, as I said, there was some challenges that of course were more visible a year ago. That were not only related to the machinery or etc., but also because it's the first recycling workspace in this area, and therefore the management is also a little bit unclear on like, is it UNHCR workspace, is it Myanmar, the Ministry of the Sahrawi workspace, and there are some struggle sometimes to coordinate between the normal waste management, so the waste, and then bring it to the workspace, recycling it. Mostly due to this sometimes coordinations, the workspace is still not 100% profitable. They will have to recycle much more plastic to reach this profitability. And as well, the plastic quality is in general very low. It's a bit the end of the road. So products that arrive there are generally not the best product, as well as the plastic that is picked up can sometimes spend a year or multiple years in the desert, and then is very degraded by the sun and the elements. But that was also somehow a first step to them, so that it really allowed them to get the first recycling place there, getting the logic of this is a waste we can do something with, and then they are therefore increasing their capacity with more industrial machines. So here is a bigger washing station that come to their place, and they will actually have bigger machinery that will, I think almost make them able to recycle a ton per week, or even 2 tons per week. And this plastic will not be transformed locally, but will be shipped back to the Algerian market, to normal industry. So the workspace now is separated in 2 places: a precious plastic workspace that still continue to focus on making objects directly for the people and for the local market, and another more conventional workspace that then is to shred plastic, wash it, and just sell it as raw material to Algerian plastic companies. So I said that generally this workspace that we install, they are small scale. They have a lot of challenge because they are generally the first one that arrive, but they are also the foot on the door that allow the people to then go towards some like classic recycling and show that this is profitable. There is a way to deal with all this waste. And that's the end of my presentation. I have a video of this project, but I think it's better if you just watch it later. If you want. I'll put the link in the chat.
Thank you. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Thank you so much, Jan. This was really interesting. There's already questions in the chat. I don't know if you can see them.
Oh yeah, let me open. Yeah. So, how did the beneficiary participate in the project? How was accepted by the people living in the camp? How did you specifically collect plastic waste, and was it well understood by the inhabitants of the camp? So I guess by the beneficiaries, you are talking about the institution of the camp. So yeah, the workspace is normally run by the Ministry of Water and Environment of the Sahrawi. So yeah, they are the ones that are heavily involved. They already are the ones that pick up the waste. So they were the best suited to run this place. As I said, there is some management trouble, which is outside of this, which is more from the unclear management of like who the profit of this workspace is going. But this is a more complex question than just waste management. So yeah, it was very well accepted by the people in the camp. Actually, so all the workers there are from the camp, of course, and they were really waiting for this. So both because they realized that, I mean, they mostly live out of cattle, so goats or camels, and the plastic is flying everywhere because it's very flat and very windy, and yet the plastic is just eaten by the animals, by the livestock, and yeah, everyone is a bit disappointed by that, but of course they didn't have any solution. And as well, there is very limited work opportunities in the camp. They generally need to go to Tindouf, the closest Algerian city. Of course, having like almost an industry in the camp was also very well received by people. The plastic waste, as I say, is collected by the ministry and then is brought to the camp. It's just separated by the workers that collect all the waste. They put the plastic they find apart, and then they just dump it, and then the plastic is sorted in the workspace. And was it well understood by the inhabitant? In general, I will say yes. For the moment, there is no precise sorting because we don't take care of the waste management. We just take care of the recycling, but the people taking care of the waste management didn't want to, like make a big revolution immediately. So at the moment, just the plastic is separated. In some schools and some offices, they have like more precise plastic sorting, but yeah, in general. And then, yeah, I didn't heard any complaint or trouble with that. And do they consume a lot of energy? Yes, so that's also the idea of our machinery, be able to install them a bit everywhere. They need to be not energy inefficient necessarily, but they need to be low energy consumption. So yeah, to give an example, our shredder, they consume between 2 and 3 kilowatts, depending on the version. And then our biggest machine, which is the seed press, goes up to 15 kilowatts. So we actually had a workspace installed in Nigeria that is running only on solar power. So you can run a workspace for under 10 kilowatts. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. We have a lot of questions actually. Carolina asked on the profitability, was there any possibility to consider producing items that UNHCR would then be distributing in any case? Realizing that, of course, a dialogue needs to be had with UNHCR in the first place on whether they can procure such locally produced items, but that could be a way also to reintroduce what you're producing and to make it more profitable.
As I say, the mention for as I mentioned, the objective for the product made was as well for the people and for the local NGOs that of course have more mean of buying things and also willingness to support any local project. So at the beginning, this first year, they tried a lot of things. As I said, they had a lot of problems with like plastic quality. So the quality of what they got out of the machines were not acceptable for the NGOs to buy. But that's why I came back this year, and then we really focused on one object that is actually the bench that I show in the picture. So to really make it, instead of like trying a lot of like different ideas everywhere, just make one product, this one works, and try to sell it. And yeah, since that they sold a couple of these, or more than a couple of these benches to the NGOs, to the local NGOs. So they actually support the workspace by buying this, putting them in their office or school or another kind of project.
Thank you so much. We have another question: is what kind of plastic can be used? How so first question, and then second question, how did you reduce the use of water? Because you mentioned that you tried to do it. How is that possible for washing the plastics?
Yeah, so the plastic can be used. So with our machine, they are fully focused on thermoplastic. So that's all the one that have a sign from 1 to 7. If you look like in the little triangle. And generally we can recycle all of them, but the PET, so the plastic bottle, and the PVC, so generally canalization pipes. So the reason for that is the PET required quite some specific temperature and humidity control that our machines don't allow. And the PVC is because it's very toxic to melt. But generally in this workspace, when we go to this very remote area, when there is a large trouble, we try to also install the baler that is there for use for plastic bottle in general. And there is generally, or at least in most of the place we went, there is a market for plastic bottle recycling, of people that buy bales and they will make pellets and they will re-go to the normal PET industry. And the second question, was about the water in our system. So yeah, so the way it works, we had a barrel when we put all our plastic, and then the plastic is is pressure washed. It's a pressure washer, so that brings like some movement in the plastic and then removing the dust. And then this barrel is then emptied, and we have a grease trap that will capture most of the grease and the sediment, and then we filter the water through sand filter, actually used for swimming pool usually. And then after this two filtration system that is very small and can be somehow integrated in the machine, then the water is re-injected in the storage tank. It's purely used for cleaning plastic, and it's not drinking water anymore, and then it's reused in the plastic. So of course, he reduced the consumption. Doesn't it's not infinite. At some point, the water becomes too dirty. The grease trap of the sand filter is too dirty and needs to be disposed. But yeah, generally they change the water every month, more or less, and it's like 500 liters.
Okay, thank you. That was very precise. Oh, we have other questions. Well, I actually have a similar question to what you said, Céline. So Céline asked, does the knowledge for maintenance was the knowledge for maintenance transferred to workers? And I had a similar question is, so when you come in and you provide the trainings, the idea is that then this can be run on its own. You don't have to participate unless for maintenance. And that was the question for Céline. So that fit in perfect.
Exactly. So already the machines, the way we design them, the fact that they are like small scale and open source, make them relatively easily maintainable with like classic industry. You need, like, if you have a welder, someone with a lathe, you can make most of the parts. Generally, when we make projects, we also include spare parts for everything that we buy, like off the shelf. And yes, of course, yeah, that's part of the training when we explain how to maintain a machine. So a bit more like the daily maintenance, with like cleaning the sinks, etc., as well as like changing the part that we know has a higher chance to fail. So generally some electronic components, etc. And generally we always like either remain available or on our Discord as well. We like from the whole community, if some people have some problem with their machine, they can just ask questions and find. And actually, this year visit that I had, that was my main extract training that I focused on them, because I was really there for maintaining the machine. So we disassembled all of them together, reassembled them, so they are able to. Normally, they are able to do it again.
Oh, that was also my question. Thank you. Do you have an average project cost? Will it be sustainable or dependent to funding to continue?
So the average project cost, it really depends, I would say, on like how the project is done, the size, etc. With the project that we are taking, that we are doing ourselves, generally they will go from 50,000 to 200,000. This was the budget for the GR project. I presented the 200,000. But there is also, as we say, we have also like a global community. So people that just want to buy one or two machines and try out, they can buy it to our community member, and then you just buy the price of the machine, not the whole, machine logistic training, etc. And then, so this project specifically had like some fundings from UNHCR for a year. I actually stopped right now. So yeah, they are trying to be sustainable. So that's why they also integrate some like conventional recycling to it, because it's a bit easier to be sustainable if you plug to an existing market, instead of like, if you start making product, you need to create your market. Like here you make the example of like a recycled plastic bench. It's a new product, nobody knows it, so there's a lot of like marketing, communication about it, and that's not easy. So that's why generally we try to integrate a bit of more conventional way of like baling bottles, shredded plastic and try to sell that, because it's very easy. You find very easy. It's pretty safe, but you find an industrial partner that will buy your waste, and then you just like provide. And that's much easier in terms of sales.
Mm. No,
Yeah. So making sustainable is always difficult. I would say if you need to reimburse your initial investment, it's very difficult. If you are supported like this one by the UN that actually bought the equipment and you just need to run it, then in that case it is totally possible to be sustainable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. The how you mentioned that you plugged into the market. That's kind of the only way to make it sustainable. So that's really interesting. I just have one last question. If anyone has another question, don't hesitate even to raise your hand or put it in the chat. But I wanted to know if my organization would be interested to work with you. How would that work?
Yeah, so you can send us like an email. So the email we use for that is projects with a S at pushplastic.com. And yeah, you explain to us a little bit your situation, what you want to do, and then yeah, we will have a couple of working course.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? If I don't see anything. Okay, well, thank you so much. That was actually very, very interesting. And we tried to get Precious Plastic on for a while as well. So thank you for making it. I saw that we had a lot of questions as well, so a lot of interest. I think people can reach out to you if they have any questions. And I mean, after this session, you're going to receive a summary anyway. So you're going to have all the information, all the links. But thank you, Jan, for coming.
No problem.
And yeah, if we can share your slides as well, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have the PDF of the slides.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna pass it on to Céline for the next part, and I'm just gonna share the screen.
Yeah, here we go. Hello everyone, so my name is Céline Heim. I'm working for ACF as Sustainable Supply Chain Coordinator. And here I propose you, so I'm co-leading with Joanna the REH Waste Management Group. And I'm proposing you 2 sessions of brainstorming, one on the reverse logistic as industrial process, and another point about the cost of waste management of our own activity, facilities and program as well. So what is reverse logistic? Perhaps some of you know it. It's really like a logistic process. Actually, it's a way back of the material. I mean, like we are used to do the forward logistic in our activity. So from the raw material to part fabrics, module sub-assembly, part assembly, inventory, customer. So this vision is the one of a company. So the definition is the process of implementation, controlling and planning the cost-effectively flow of finishing good and of raw material. But what we try to ensure in the reverse logistics, so it's a way back. So collecting the material from the inventory, from actually the different phase of production, but as well when it's in the hand of the customer to ensure that it's a way back that can be our recycler to recapture value or to ensure like a proper dispose as well. There is as well some services as SRB, so services of maintenance and reparation after use that can be considered in the logistic. So just to give you a little bit of overview about this concept, and we can jump on the next slide, please, Joanna. So the proposition is how to copy paste this process to the humanitarian context. So leaving the industrial one, but jumping in our like way of working on program. So the same map is that, yeah, in green is the forward logistics. So in the controls that we do, we start the procurement process where you see the column in orange. So from the purchasing to the storage to the distribution, and next we leave our ownership when it's arriving to the user hand, so the beneficiary. So here we go. In some activity, but it's not that so common, there is a way of collection of waste. For example, from the packaging of the plum peanut, it's a good example of this type of packaging multi-layer that is collected and then transfer to currently incinerator, because we don't have so far on the ground solution to treat this kind of packaging. So one idea is to ensure that we have the sorting actually at the point of distribution as well. There is a part which is non-current waste management. So from the sorting, we have the post-distribution collection, which means transportation up to a point of storage, which is the inspection and perhaps a second type of sorting. And here we entrance in the split of the material to can be repair or reuse workshop, or as well recycling workshop, up to a canal of material that coming back in the manufacturer. So there is a part of this workflow that we can do internally. So from the collection, from the program activity, especially when we do monitoring action on the ground, that can be an opportunity to collect up to the volume and type of goods. We need to design if it's like internal transport or external transport. And as well, all the parts from repair and reuse, as well, it can be in-house, like with supporting setting up activities that generate incomes. By example, if we distribute solar lamp, that we want to ensure that we have available like a solution for reparation, and as well collecting the battery or providing the spare part necessary. It's all this new way of thinking that we are trying to explore from ACF, but I really wanted to open the conversation to you on the floor to think what are the feasibility and the opportunity about trying to implement this kind of process. So yeah, if you have any interaction on this flowchart, I will be really happy to open the conversation.
Thank you, Céline. Did you put up specific questions? Or, yeah, I think so, right? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, basically it was the definition of the opportunity and challenge. If you can just jump up, Joanna. So I wanted as well to highlight that the previous slide was the one for capturing the process relative to distribution, but as well we are providing waste from our guest house and office. And here is the same setup. So that's the consumer is internally, so we can more easily capture for the sorting that we can do internally up to the repair, well, transfer to the repair and reuse channel, and transfer ourselves to the recycling channel.
So if you have any questions, or if you want to raise your hand, or any question or insights on this. Tanya?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I represent Electricians Without Borders. Thank you, Celine, for the presentation. I maybe just to make sure, this seems to concern items that are distributed like in a short period of time. And I had a question regarding the objects that have, for example, a kind of a long life cycle, like 10 years. Is the process different? I imagine it is. So that's one of our big questions, is like, how do you apply different techniques between an item that you distribute in a short period of time and that can be immediately entered into this kind of a reverse logistics process? And if you distribute or if you implement infrastructures that are going to end up as waste, but on a longer term, does it change this kind of a flow, and how so? That's one of our questions. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thank you a lot for this. Actually, the workflow, so you can just go up, please. The slide, because this one is for facilities. I mean, the slide that it just before, sorry. So to answer the projection, so the design, yeah, here we go. So this design was more relative to, like, let's say, regular distribution. Like if we have like a 1-year contract and that we decide that we want to make like 3 range of distribution or 6, that was more relative to this, because each time that there is another distribution, it's an opportunity after the sorting area to collect the different material. And but on the longer, so, and here we go, that the cost of this collection as well can be integrated into this program. But if we think about long-term item, like more equipment, I don't know, it can be material from a solar pump installation and so on. It's true that if the project stopped like few years before, we can provide ourselves the cost, infrastructure, and transport for the recycling. So here, if we like dissociate the cost of a project and we have kind of a lump sum, which is general for waste management for an area, that can answer to this solution. Yeah, it's a really good point. Actually, it links as well with the next slide about the management of the cost of the services. So does the workflow will change in case of NFI or food item, well, packaging of food item to equipment? From my perspective, not that so much. Actually, like the part of repair reuse is more relative to equipment. That will be more the timeline than it will change and the availability of the resource, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Celine. There's a question that says, is repurposing an option in your project?
It can be for some materials. So repurposing, we don't change the material, so we just reuse. And by example, for the plastic bag that we can use to group the seeds, it's this kind of material that can be reused. So it's the way how we distribute to the program and that we collect back. It can be only a washing or transfer, or it can be stock in house. It can be as well retransfer to the supplier and so on, or the producer. So we need to think more about this kind of opportunity. But yeah. So here is not relative to one project, it's more like a general flow chart to stimulate the brainstorm, let's say. Thank you, Hossein.
if anyone has a question. Otherwise, I have a question I wanted to know because Alexandre.
Oh, please finish your question.
No, go ahead. I'll keep mine fast. But...
Okay. Hello there. Just one question would be, because well, there was this, I don't know, what's the presentation a few days back, I think, by the REH about something, I don't know, for a specific plastic, bioplastic and all that things. And they were saying that, yeah, for when giving to the beneficiaries, it would be probably better to give, let's say, some sort of high quality plastic because it can be indeed be reused. So and I'm wondering on other aspects, and maybe on the one idea is about the plum peanut packaging that is currently just let's say a headache, an environmental headache. So it's everywhere. So I was wondering if let's say giving money back to the beneficiaries if they bring back some part of the packaging, you know, like some consigne in French. I can't remember the name. Is reasonable, interesting option from some of the item, obviously not everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandre. Yeah, it's a really good point. Few days ago, we had a presentation of the joint initiatives that have a project on plastic, and it was the point on bio-based, bio-source plastic and so on. And yeah, it's a good point that one point what to ensure that the packaging can be reused as much as possible. There is other opportunity as well of composting material, but we really need to highlight that composting or biodegradable material sometimes are only in industrial composting. So we don't have this type of infrastructure locally. And that as well, we want to delete totally the oxo-degradable plastic because it's finishing in microplastic. So that was an interesting session. So this point, at the side of the design of the technical specification of the couple product and packaging, it has to be analyzed about which type of plastic we need. Does it have to be the alimentary quality, like a food quality? The material we want up to the design to be reusable as much as possible. So the plastic is a good material for this. So should we switch for other type of material? It's a really good question. So in that case, if it can be reused, yeah, step in the out of the sorting area. The other point was about the plum peanut packaging. So far in ACF, by example, we didn't make the consigne. I think translation is order or baggage rule. The order. But we request the packaging before giving the new number of plum peanut. It was some try as well about other type of packaging. For example, one of the enriched flour that we start to collect on project on Burkina, but it was more planified by the mill team at the way when they do the monitoring evaluation and they go back on the villages. So that is almost concluded so far. A try. So yeah, I'm happy that any other group person in the group here have feedback on their way of working about the collection phase.
Thank you.
I know that for the plum peanut, they are working on a new type of packaging which can be normally recyclable. but so far it's like an ongoing process of research and innovation. It's not already finalized.
We have a comment by Hussein in the chat. He says, I mean,
yeah. I think the flowchart can be more contextualized for what context.
I think also the issue is that we're, I mean, I know ISF is trying out this this reverse logistics, and we don't know actually how much it was tried out across different programs, which is also something that came out, I mean, in the survey at first, I mean, no one mentioned it. So that's why also we wanted to see if anyone had actually done it as well. So, I mean, Celine, I don't know if you want to answer to this, but.
I think that we can jump on the next session. Perhaps it will answer to this point.
Yeah, well, actually, I had a question related
yeah.
to both.
Yeah.
So it's just, is there a way of this? Because if there's an emergency that happens or anything, then you're gonna have to store, and then you're gonna have some extra costs, or if you can't actually pick it up, and that was my question as well. Is it so? I think it's most likely that you could end up with extra costs, and then is there a way in the long term for this to be sustainable? Or do you think it's always going to imply extra costs?
I mean, it depends in how it's designed in the activity. Like in the project, if for one activity like distribution there is directly the line of sub-activity for the way of collection and treatment, I think that can be more feasible. But in that case, that can work if we just like follow the same loop of material in the same area. If we go on the second case that mentioned Tanya, like for equipment, and that we need to manage the waste after the end of the project, is another matter.
Okay, thank you. Well, from that, I'm going to launch onto the second topic. If it will,
yeah, the both are really relative. Huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically the goal that we have as an organization is having a waste management plan for program activity. So from the program and facilities as well, that can be integrated in the program, and so have the ability of the resource through be funded by donor. First of all, when I mean waste management plan, of course, we keep in mind that we want to establish first a sustainable solution of the 5R logic, of course. So in this big mapping, coming from the theme of the reverse logistic, so few challenge are that collection is handled by private sector for transport, incinerator, landfills, when the capacity is in the area. For the private sector, they have most interest on big volume. So our small volume, example, for facilities and some activity are not so don't have the capacity of the cost recovery of the collection. So that is a constraint as well. So here we have an opportunity to merge as an NGO in that same area in terms of having a system that can respond to all our needs. As well, we have the cost of treatment, sorting at source, the lack of space in some area, for example, to make the sorting. Of course, in the emergency activity, the priority is the timeline of the delivery. So it's really complex to join at the same time, like a recycling assessment and having the system in place or develop the system in place if it's not already developed to work with the existing recycling spot. And last but not least, we are working in different level of maturity of the waste sector. If you can jump on the next slide, please, Joanna. Yeah, thanks. Great. So we defined that there is like mainly 4 category of waste sector maturity. Like if we consider, like in Europe, we have a develop and access sector. If we jump on the maturity number 2, so when the sector are developed but not accessible, so it's, by example, where our small quantity are not sufficient to interest the private sector, and here we have an opportunity of pool services, for example, for the collection. Next, we have the scenario 3. So when the waste sector is underdeveloped or artisanal. So as well here we have opportunity of pool services for the collection, but as well to strengthening the value chain creation, for example, supporting new projects or developing a new waste market. And the last one, most relative to remote location, so the non-developed sector. So here it's much more complex, as a global project reinforcement is needed to support the capacity building of the municipality, plus a specialist partner in pooling opportunity for the collection management. And as well here, we integrate the hazardous waste export and monitoring when we don't have the feasibility and the country level to manage the exportation. Of course, up to the law of the country and under the respect of the BAL Convention. Yeah, if you can move on. And then the next slide. Thank you. It's a little bit of feedback from experience of 2 field locations that have like infrastructure very different. By example, in Iraq case, we make an assessment on the work done by the informal waste picker, how they're working, what they're collecting, who they're selling at which price. As well, we visit the 2 biggest recycler company. What are the proper factory, multi materials, and as well landfill and composting fields. They're in 2 areas in the north of the country, so the waste of the other region are not transferred to this factory. As well, we assess the municipal infrastructure collection. Let's say that there are 12 companies that are just collector. So they collect and they transport to the landfill, which is the last part, which is very complex to visit and polemic. So how is disposed the majority of the waste of the city? Yeah, it was just to have a little bit of understanding. So yeah, if you can jump on the next one. So we make a market assessment of the recycler, and by example, one of the companies, so the most developed one, work with oil company and other big company, so they have like a proper infrastructure, but they're not used to work with households and small company, small volume as we have. So according to the estimation that we had, for example, a picking of 4 bins of 200 liter after sorting is around 200 USD by picking. So of course, it's not feasible in this price because mainly because the cost of transport. So here we see the opportunity of merging and having a pool services or by district or for NGO to make more feasible this picking of collection. But the infrastructure is existing. So yeah, so far we have a balance between informal waste picker that are supported and as well with a recycling company. And here is a comparison with another type of context. So Burkina Faso with the city of Ouagadougou. As well, we make an analysis about how is working the waste collection between the collection. They have like sorting discharge. So properly there are areas where they dump the waste for one district, and then a truck is collecting everything and transfers to what we call the Center of Waste Recovery and Treatment Center. And there is the last round of sorting between compost and plastic, but material are really like mixed, and it's hard to get like good quality second materials. And the last is transferred to the technical landfill center. So you can see, by example, as well, that in Burkina Faso, that they have a technical landfill center, would have like a proper net covering the bottom, which is a better infrastructure actually that in Iraq, much better. So yeah, here what we try to do is having what we put in place is having the sorting at the initial stage, and we wanted to work directly. Well, first of all, to reinforce as well the picking team, let's say GIE, so Groupement d'intérêt économique, to ensure that they are keeping in the loop our new system. And we work directly with the association at the Center of Waste Recovery and Treatment. Actually, what we want to delete of the process is the sorting discharge. So that wasn't so complex to put in charge. It's more like conversation, seeing what is the balance, what is the price of collection, what is like few material of information. So setting up the channel, but yeah, more or less it's used well, it's costing 22 USD by picking. So it's much less cheaper, because as well working with association directly. Yeah. So yeah, that was our feedback from Burkina Faso. And last but not least, here in its estimation, actually in Burkina Faso, so we start to map a bit what could be the opportunity of merging services. In the country, we have a few pool services actors. So we have the Lock Cluster, we have Atlas Logistic for the national transport, and we have ULO, who is working on so far pool services for contracting for NGO, more to setting up the first phase of the tender. So it's really the design of which type of services and purchase we can work together as NGO. So one case study, it was like a scenario of a program of the North region, like Dori, how we can set up and organize and share responsibility in task if we want to bring the waste that can't be treated properly there or can be recycled to the capital when we have like the small the small center of recycling, let's say. So we had an imagination, we like split the different spots, phase. So from the transport, from the collection remote point, so the area where we do distribution, to the sub office, which is like totally the NGO part. But here we go, we can like probably create a sorting area that can be merged, and it can be as well like more supportive to the municipality. So next, transport from this sorting area to the transport of the capital. So that was another task. So what is important here is as well that the truck need to be split in terms of sorting area to ensure that there is any contamination, but as well who is responsible of the sorting area, for example, in the warehouse of the cluster, and who is responsible of the transport, that can be, by example, Atlas Logistic. But then when it's appeared to the capital, who is responsible to spread out, to distribute or to transfer the valuable second material to the recycler. That was other point that was under conversation. and definitively having like one actor collaborating this reverse logistic collection was one of the main points. So yeah, up to the estimation, it was like around 6.5% of a project of 1 million. And yeah, so I don't know if some people around the table, you have a question and you want to have a feedback on this. I'm really glad if you have like similar experience or start of brainstorm at your program level.
Don't hesitate to raise your hand or put something in the chat if you do.
Okay, so good. I'll let you over, Joanna. Thank you.
But I think also just for someone that I mean doesn't work on program level, it's really interesting to see how much it would actually cost, and even just taking the time to do this brainstorming like what you did with Atlas and everything, that must have costed a lot as well. So it's just it's really interesting how much this might not be taken into account. And Tanya said, I think pooling is key for all the different types of waste. And so it really needs cooperations between the different organizations, which is also something that we want to push at the working group. So if you want to join and you work in different areas, I mean, that's also one of the ways that we really identify this could be done. I mean, we're also actually quite almost out of time. So I'm just going to just very quickly present you what we want to do at the working group. And if you do want to join us, you're more than welcome. So we want to develop a common standard of procedure for waste management. We might actually do this in the context of a project. So we really want to have as many people as we can, as many experiences to produce the best possible common standard of procedure. That's similar to what the ICRC developed for medical waste. We thought about doing by different types of waste and different situations as well. So it also goes back to what Hossein was saying in the chat, that in certain situations, you might have the possibilities, if not in emergency and so on. So that's something that we want to work on. We also want to cooperate with the joint initiative on mapping recycling companies for the Ukraine response. So they're always eager to get information on recycling companies in different humanitarian settings. So if you do have any insights on this, don't hesitate to send us who in your organization is working on this or has access to this information so that we can coordinate with them and the joint initiative, to do this mapping. And finally, as I said, we want to continue cooperating with other initiatives, the joint initiatives, and the other working groups, such as the sustainable and responsible procurement, which Celine is also taking the lead on. So cooperation is happening also through this, and working also through other aspects such as the Need Plus Waste module. We want to contribute. Basically, we want to be able to be a platform where different experts have this knowledge and work together to find solutions. So thank you all for joining us today. Don't hesitate to join the network if you want to, and if you want to join this specific working group, you can send us an email. And we really do appreciate that you took the time to come here today. I know you're all very busy, so don't hesitate to reach out. And after this session, you'll receive a summary and the slides and everything. So again, I would just want to thank you all, especially Jan and Celine, and everyone that participated.
Thank you a lot, Joanna, as well for the organization. Thank you, Jan.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.